I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. He's been my fourth man in the fire, time after time. Born of His Spirit, washed in His blood. And what He did for me on Calvary is more than enough. So I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. Perfect submission, all is at rest. I know the author of tomorrow has ordered my steps. And this is my story, oh yeah. And this is my song, praising my risen King and Savior all the day long. I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. I sought the Lord, and He heard, and He answered. I sought the Lord, and He heard, and He answered. I sought the Lord, and He heard, and He answered. That's why I trust Him. That's why I trust Him. I sought the Lord, and He heard, and He answered. I sought the Lord, and He heard, and He answered. I sought the Lord, and He heard, and He answered. That's why I trust Him. That's why I trust Him. I sought the Lord, then He heard, then He answered. I sought the Lord, then he heard, then he answered. I sought the Lord, then he heard, then he answered. That's why I trust him. That's why I trust him. I sought the Lord, then he heard, then he answered. I sought the Lord, then he heard, then he answered. I sought the Lord, then he heard, then he answered. That's why I trust him. That's why I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. Ooh, I love this song. This song has been on repeat. On repeat for so many days. But it has just taken a different form this particular week for me. I would say even since last week, really, since Saturday. I've been singing this song with so much more understanding of God and how I can trust him. I can trust God. Oh, it's good to even say out loud, I can trust God. And I've been listening to this song. It's called I Trust in God. And man, the lyrics are so beautifully written and powerful as well. And it's really a reminder that we are to confess what we believe. And you have to say it with your mouth. And I love that it repeats, I trust the Lord, and I sought the Lord, and he heard, and he answered. I sought the Lord, and he heard, and he answered. And it's really a declaration of, yes, I sought the Lord for whatever it might be, and he heard me, and he answered. And then it says, I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. I love the song. And I think this week it took a different understanding, the song itself, because of a particular part in the lyrics. And this particular part is in the verse, the first verse. Oh, beautiful. So the first verse says, blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. He's been my fourth man in the fire, time after time. Born of his Spirit, washed in his blood, and what he did for me on Calvary is more than enough. I trust in God. And then it goes into the chorus. So the part that really caught my attention this time, like I loved that part since I've heard the song the first time, but this time it was just different the way I understood the song. And it's the part where it says, he's been my fourth man in the fire, time after time. And so he's been my fourth man in the fire, time after time. Oh, the person who wrote that read the Bible. I actually know who wrote the songs. It's actually 4 people. And honestly, they read the Bible, because it's taken from actually a book of the Bible that I spent the time kind of reading this week, and also actually at church, it was also the Bible verse that the pastor at my church preached this Sunday. And I was just so blessed to be able to, yes, I was experiencing God in a new way in this particular song through what it means by He's been my fourth man in the fire time after time. But then it just took another shape. Again, being encouraged at church, you know, I have even my church notes with me. Oh my goodness, it was so good. Blessing. Anyways, but like so much, I've learned so much this past week and weekend about this particular verse. And so as I was thinking about this song and how it says that Jesus has been my fourth man in the fire time after time, then I asked myself, who's your fourth man? Like, yes, I was singing the song, and I could think even of moments in my life where I know Jesus was my fourth man in whatever danger, in whatever situation I was in, and I was like, man, I can't get out of this situation. It's too hard to get out of this situation. But I can think of it. I'm like, man, He was my fourth man in that fire. He was my fourth man in that situation. And then it made me think, how many times do I find myself in the fires or the smokes or the fogs or the whatever of life? Do I still have Him as my fourth man in those fires, in those fogs, in those moments, in those situations? Who is my fourth man? Who is your fourth man in the fires of life? And I started thinking about it and thinking about like the different fourth men that someone could have in the fires and the struggles, the problems of life. And so I started listing them. So I have a whole list. I had to write it down because I wanted to be able to really understand He's been my fourth man in the fire. What are some of the things that can easily take the place of the fourth man that is Jesus? Man, honestly, for me, it blows my mind. And I want to continue this in English, but I feel like I need to also kind of translate it in French for whoever is listening to me in French, because I do have a French audience. So for those of you who speak English, don't go away. Stay right here. I will come back in English. I'll try my best to do it back and forth, but to be able to also encourage those who are listening in French. Aujourd'hui, je suis en train d'écouter un chant qui s'appelle I Trust in God. Et pour traduire, on peut dire que c'est je fais confiance à Dieu ou j'ai confiance en Dieu. Et ce chant est tellement un chant merveilleux, c'est en anglais. Et il y a une partie du chant au début qui dit que Jésus a été le quatrième homme dans les feux de ma vie. C'est une façon pour moi de traduire ce que ça veut dire. Jésus a été le quatrième homme dans les feux de ma vie. Alors pendant cette semaine, je pensais à ça. Je me suis dit, mais Seigneur, combien de fois dans ma vie, tu as été le quatrième homme dans les feux de ma vie, dans les situations de ma vie que je n'arrive pas à supporter. Je me pose des questions, mais Seigneur, comment je vais faire ceci ou cela? Et il vient comme le quatrième homme dans les feux de ma vie. Et ça vient, cette phrase dans ce chant vient du livre de Daniel, où il y avait Shadrach, Meshach et Abednego qui étaient dans le feu, dans la fournaise. Et il y avait un quatrième homme qui est venu être avec eux dans ce feu. Qui est le quatrième homme dans la vie, dans ta vie, en ce qui concerne les feux, les situations, les foudres, les problèmes de ta vie? Qui est le quatrième homme? And as I was just translating, for me, this really comes back to who is the fourth man in the fires, in the struggles, in the problems of your life? Think about it. When you have those situations, who is the fourth man? Who can you really, without a shadow of a doubt, be like, this person will always be here. This person will always be the fourth man. That's why, honestly, I don't think that that's a title you should give any human being. Je crois pas que c'est être le titre de quatrième personne dans le feu, dans les feux de ta vie. C'est pas un titre que tu peux donner à n'importe qui. Je crois même pas que c'est un titre que tu peux donner à un humain. Ça doit être un titre qui va seul à celui qui est capable de te faire sortir du feu. Ou de te garder là et de toujours te protéger même dans le feu. The title of fourth man in the fire should go to someone who is capable of getting you out of that fire, or even if he wasn't to get you out of that fire, he's able to keep you from burning. What? Honestly, in my head, when I think about it, why would anyone else or anything else be the fourth man in my life, in the fires of my life? And it's so interesting. As I was going through, reading the story of these men, so I'm going to read just a part of it. It's going to be in Daniel chapter 3. And it starts from the first verse. From the first verse, it already tells you. Je suis en train de lire à partir de Daniel chapitre 3. Et je commence le premier verset. Donc, l'histoire de Shadrach, Meshach et Abednego. And so the story starts by saying King Nebuchadnezzar, his name is too hard to pronounce. Let's just start there. Son nom est quand même difficile à prononcer. Le roi Nabuchodonosor, c'est vraiment difficile. Alors je vais juste l'appeler roi Nebu. On va s'arrêter là. I think I'm just gonna call him King Nebu. That's about it. Because too long of a name. But it says that he made an image of gold 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, and set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. He then summoned the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all other provincial officials to come to the dedication of the image he had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other provincial officials assembled for the dedication of the image that King Nebu had set up. And they stood before it. So pretty much the story is that he puts together this big statue of gold. And he tells everyone, you guys need to come and worship this big old statue I've put together. And he's like, anyone, as you read on, you'll realize that he says that anyone who doesn't bow down to the statue will be thrown into the furnace. Alors, le King Nebu, il dit que non, tout le monde doit venir et s'agenouiller devant la statue en or qu'il a construite. Et que qui que ce soit ne s'agenouille pas, va être jeté dans la fournaise ardente. Alors, and then we get the story of these three very intelligent geniuses, actually, who were very big people in the kingdom, who had actually come into the kingdom into Babylon as captives of war. And so they knew God, and they knew that they could not bow to any idol. to anyone else but their God. And so for them, they knew when they call us and they ring that bell and they ask everyone to bow down, we ain't bowing down. For them, they had conviction, as I learned on Sunday. They had conviction. They were very strong in their convictions. We are not bound down. It's not happening. Alors, il y avait ces trois jeunes hommes d'Israël qui étaient captifs, pris captifs et amenés en Babylone et qui étaient très intelligents et qui faisaient partie du groupe des aides, des gens qui aidaient le roi Nébu. Et ils savaient bien que la loi disait que quand on va sonner l'alarme, tout le monde doit s'agenouiller devant la statuette en or. Mais pour eux, ils savaient que nous ne pouvons pas mettre nos genoux devant un autre Dieu. Nous avons un seul Dieu et nous ne pouvons que le louer et l'adorer seulement lui. Alors ils se sont dit non, on ne va pas le faire. Mais la punition de ne pas le faire, c'est que tu seras jeté dans la fournaise. Et ils étaient prêts à être jetés dans la fournaise. And that's one thing about these young people. They were ready to go into the furnace for their convictions. Ready to be thrown in there. And so, as we read on in the verses, they then choose not to bow, and they are in front of King Nebu, and they tell him. And of course, they were, haters who went and accused them of not bowing. Haters are always around doing something. But then they refuse to bow. And then in verse 16, verse 16, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, "We do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown in the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us." Oh, that's good. That's really good. And then it says, "From your majesty's hand." With all due respect, King Nebu, as much as you think you're powerful, our God will deliver us out of your hand. Avec tellement de confiance en Dieu, ils disent, ces jeunes disent au roi Nebu, non. Avec tout le respect qu'on vous doit, roi, nous voulons vous dire que même si vous nous jetez là-dedans, notre Dieu nous délivrera pas seulement de la fournaise, mais de tes mains. Aïe! It's so amazing. It's so beautifully said and proclaimed with so much faith and trust in God. And so he says that. And then it's so interesting how you have to have faith in God to be able to stand up even to the one paying your bills, helping you continue to live. Like the person has the ability to cut your life short, but you trust that God is stronger than that person. And then it says, but even if he doesn't, verset 18, même si il ne nous sauve pas, we want you to know, Your Majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. And so they refuse. They're like, we are not going to worship this image. We are not going to do what you tell us to do. It's not going to happen at all. Forget it. We are not going to bow down. And for them, they're like, our God will definitely deliver us. We know that. But even if he was to not deliver us, we will still not bow down. Ces jeunes disent, non, nous savons très bien que notre Seigneur nous délivrera. Mais même s'il ne le fait pas, nous continuerons à le faire confiance et nous n'allons pas nous agenouiller devant cette statue, cette idole que vous avez érigée. Et pour moi, c'est un encouragement. Quelles sont les choses qui essaient de te faire agenouiller? Il est temps de dire que Dieu te délivrera de cette main qui te force de le faire. Et même s'il ne le fait pas, tu ne t'agenouilleras pas. And I think it's very important for us to come to a point where to think about what are those things that are making us bow our knees. And to even decide that to be able to speak to those things that are trying to make us bow our knees and say, God will deliver me from you. You trying to make me bow my knees. And even if he wasn't to deliver me, I am bound. I'm not bowing. Period. It's amazing. For me, I love this story because it's so, it's like sassy, but at the same time respectful, and at the same time like crazy, insane. And you know, so King Nebu gets angry and he's like, oh, since you guys don't want to bow, guys, make the furnace 7 times hotter. Et comme le roi Nebu ne voulait, il s'est rendu compte que le Shadrach, Meshach et Abednego n'allaient pas s'agenouiller devant sa statue. Il a dit, alors là, maintenant, il faut qu'on rende la fournaise, que la fournaise soit 7 fois plus chaude. And so I went and looked it up on Google. And I was like, what's the degrees exactly of that? Because I wanted to know exactly how much that would be. Alors j'ai regardé sur Google pour savoir exactement c'est quoi la mesure. So it says the fire they were facing was most certainly lethal. A brick kiln, which is where they were placed, in this era would reach roughly 1,832 Fahrenheit. Or 1,000 degrees Celsius. Donc, là où la fournaise où on devait les mettre, à ces moments-là, à cette époque-là, était à peu près 1832 degrés Fahrenheit et puis 1000 degrés Celsius. And then it says, it was made 7 times hotter than that 1,832, which would bring it to 12,824. 12,824 Fahrenheit, which is 3,000 Fahrenheit hotter than the surface of the sun. Donc, au total, parce ils avaient ajouté ça, ils ont rendu ça un peu plus chaud, 7 fois plus chaud. Ça devait être 12 824 degrés Fahrenheit. 12 824. Et ça veut dire que c'était 3000 degrés Fahrenheit plus chaud que la surface du soleil. Que la surface du soleil. Guys, that's hot. I live in Florida and I complain about the sun and the heat sometimes. And I can definitely say, without a shadow of a doubt, that I wouldn't want to be close to the surface of the sun. And you are telling me that this furnace, 7 times hotter, was 3,000 Fahrenheit above the surface of the sun. Yeah, most people would be like, where do I bow? Where do I bow? Do you want me to be just prostrate, like lay on the floor? Like what? Sérieusement, beaucoup de gens, s'ils entendaient que non, la fournaise où on va me jeter maintenant sera 3000 degrés Fahrenheit plus que la surface du soleil. Moi, je vis en Floride et je connais très bien qu'il fait quand même chaud ici. Et des fois, je me dis, mais c'est trop chaud. Et imagine que ces gens devaient être jetés dans une fournaise qui était 3000 fois plus chaud que la surface du soleil. Beaucoup de gens se diraient, oh non, 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 où est-ce que je m'agenouille exactement? Faut juste me montrer là où je m'agenouille et je suis là, hein, je le ferai. But these guys were like, God, our God, once you put us in there, will deliver us. For sure, he will deliver us. But even if he was to not do it, we're still not going back. So, make it hotter. Make it hotter. Make it hotter. And then the story goes on with them being thrown into the fire. And then King Nebu looks at the fire and he's like, hold on. I thought we threw 3 people in there. Meaning, I remember counting them. It was 3 of them. Why is it that I see a 4th man? A 4th one. Donc, le roi Nebu, il se dit, mais je me rappelle qu'on a juste jeté, on a jeté 3 hommes dans cette fournaise. Comment je vois 4? Un 4e homme est dans la fournaise. C'est comme ça que je pose la question. Qui est le 4e homme dans la fournaise de ta vie? Dans les problèmes de ta vie, dans les situations de ta vie? Qui est le 4e homme? That's why I asked the question, who is the 4th man in the situations, the problems, the struggles of your life? Do you not have a 4th man? Oh. I can't imagine not having my 4th man in the fires of my life. Je ne peux pas imaginer ne pas avoir le 4e homme qui est Jésus dans les situations et les problèmes de ma vie. Who is the 4th man? C'est comme le chant le dit. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. He's been my 4th man in the fire, time after time. Born of his spirit, washed in his blood, and what he did for me on Calvary is more than enough. I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. C'est qui le 4e homme dans les fournaises de ta vie? dans les situations de ta vie, dans les problèmes de ta vie. Who is the fourth man in the situations, in the furnaces, in the problems of your life? Do you actually have a fourth man? That's actually the question I kind of spent the time thinking about this particular week. I was like, there are so many things that we can use as the fourth man in the situations of our lives. And so I came up with a list. The list I was showing before. J'ai passé cette semaine à penser. Il y a beaucoup d'autres choses que nous pouvons utiliser comme le quatrième homme dans les situations de nos vies. Et ces choses ou ces personnes ne sont pas supposées être le quatrième homme dans les situations, dans les problèmes de nos vies. Du tout. Because if we are to put these things as the fourth man in our lives, we're doomed. That furnace will burn us. The situations of life will burn us. And so I went through a list as I was looking at, some of the things that we can make into the fourth man of our lives. I was like, money. J'ai commencé à écrire une liste un peu des choses qu'on peut utiliser comme le quatrième homme dans les situations de nos vies. Comme l'argent. Money. I put here money, inheritance, trust funds. L'argent, héritage qu'on t'a laissé d'un parent ou d'un grand-parent, ou l'argent qui a été laissé par tes parents qui sont riches. And then I wrote career, job, side hustle. Une carrière. Un job. Des petits trucs que tu fais ici et là. All those things, your career can become a fourth man you rely on. That's not the right fourth man to rely on. Because here's the thing about money. Let's say you use money as your fourth man in the fire. Last time I checked, money burns. Si tu veux utiliser l'argent comme le quatrième homme dans la fournaise de ta vie, je me rappelle bien que l'argent, ça brûle. So, it's not reliable. Money comes and goes, has its feelings, has its ways. It's not reliable at all. Career, jobs. How many people lost jobs during the pandemic? How many people haven't even gotten any job since? Any good, reliable jobs? Si le travail, avoir un travail ici et là, pouvoir travailler dans un bureau ou quoi, c'est ça qui est le quatrième homme qui te fortifie dans la fournaise. Combien de gens ont perdu leur travail pendant la pandémie? Combien de gens n'ont pas toujours de travail jusqu'à aujourd'hui? It really is something to think about. And then I went on and I was like, family and friends. Guys, I love my family. I love my family. Oh my goodness. I love my family very much. But I know also they cannot be the fourth man in the fire. And the thing is, my family, they love God. They trust God. They live for God. But I know that they also are limited. They have their limit. They cannot be the fourth man. They cannot be my fourth man in the fires of life, in the struggles, in the problems of life. Là, dans la liste, j'ai écrit famille, amis. Et moi, j'aime beaucoup ma famille. Et ma famille aime le Seigneur, ils vivent pour le Seigneur, mais je sais aussi que c'est pas possible pour moi, c'est pas une bonne idée pour moi de mettre ma famille ou mes amis comme le quatrième homme dans la fournaise, parce que malgré que oui, ils connaissent le Seigneur et ils vivent pour le Seigneur, ils ont leurs limites. And then I said looks, talent, ability. As you can tell, I can sing. I can do a lot of other things as well. I'm a painter. I am very good at a lot of sports. Like, I have a lot of abilities and I'm quite beautiful. But anyways, like, all these other things, if you were to rely on them in the fires of life, that your looks will get you somewhere, that your abilities will be the ones to open the door out of the furnace of your life, and you're making that ability or that talent or that look into the fourth man in the furnace, you age. There will always be someone more talented than you. Oh my God. J'ai écrit ici que la façon que tu te présentes ou tes talents, tes capacités peuvent devenir comme un quatrième homme dans ta vie, dans la fournaise. Mais la chose est que, la réalité est que la façon que tu te présentes et que tu es belle ou tu es beau ou quoi, tu vas vieillir. À un certain moment, tu ne pourras plus avoir cette façon de voir les choses comme le quatrième homme dans la fournaise de ta vie. Et aussi, les talents, il y aura toujours quelqu'un qui est meilleur que toi. Il y aura toujours quelqu'un qui a plus de talent que toi. Tu ne peux pas avoir ton talent ou tes talents comme le quatrième homme dans la fournaise de ta vie. Then I continued and I was like, fame, notoriety. Donc, le fait qu'on te connaît, on te connaît partout au monde, tu es populaire. I said, a mentor, a trainer, un mentor, quelqu'un qui t'aide à avancer dans ton business ou quoi. Cette personne-là, quand le feu commencera et ils doivent te joindre dans le feu, ils ne le feront pas. Et même s'ils peuvent au début, ça ne veut pas dire qu'ils resteront là avec toi dans le feu. And you know, a mentor, it doesn't mean that because they are there for you, that they will always be willing to enter the furnace with you. Oh, Jesus. Or that even if they were to enter the furnace with you, that they would stay as long as it takes with you. I wrote medication or treatments. Is that what you rely on? Is that the fourth man in your fires of health? Because those medications, they create new ones every year. And then later on in the years, they say there were side effects that we didn't know at the beginning. And now if you're experiencing this and that, come back and we'll pay you. You can't rely on them in the furnaces of your life. Your medication and the treatments you're getting cannot be the fourth man in the fires of your health. I know that so well. I'm so grateful for God's healing in my life. Les médicaments, les différents traitements que tu dois avoir chez le docteur ou quoi, est-ce que c'est le quatrième homme dans la fournaise des maladies que tu as? C'est ça qui te garde? C'est ça qui te protège? C'est ça que tu te dis, oh non, je veux prendre seulement les médicaments, je veux faire ces traitements, ça va aller. Si c'est ça qui est le quatrième homme dans la fournaise de ta santé, combien de médicaments ne sont plus utilisés maintenant parce qu'ils ont eu des effets secondaires? Ça ne peut pas être le quatrième homme dans la fournaise dans les problèmes, dans la fournaise de ta santé. And then I wrote here, I was like doctor, nutritionist, docteur, nutritionniste. And then I even wrote experiences, travels, fun. It can't be the fourth man in the fires of life. That for you prefer to have fun and travel the world to avoid the fires that are happening in your life. That doesn't last. At some point, you will come to decide and say, okay, this furnace, I can travel all I want to try to run away from my problems, but it's following me. Il y a certaines personnes qui utilisent comme les vacances, des histoires fun et des choses à faire pour un peu les distraire de toutes les fournaises de leur vie, les problèmes de leur vie. Aller dans un autre pays ne veut pas arrêter tous les problèmes, les situations. Même là, il y a une fournaise. Là où tu veux aller. Where you're trying to escape to, you're trying to escape to that place. Even there are furnaces that you have yet to experience. But for you, if the fun of traveling and doing all these things is the fourth man in your fire, bruh, you're doomed. It cannot be the fourth man in the fires of your life. It just can't. And then I wrote food. J'écris aussi la nourriture. Que la nourriture, il y a certaines personnes, pour eux, la nourriture est la quatrième personne dans la fournaise de leur vie. Dans les situations de leur vie, pour eux, ce qui leur donne le confort, c'est la nourriture. There are some people, food becomes the thing that brings them comfort in the midst of the furnaces of their lives. You cannot rely on it. First of all, because it just adds in all sorts of places in your body. Let's just start there. But apart from that, at some point you have to stop eating. Your body will tell you you cannot eat anymore. Like, you can't rely on food. The food cannot be the fourth man in the furnaces of your depression. Food cannot be the fourth man in the furnace of your anxiety. At all. La nourriture ne peut pas devenir le quatrième homme dans la fournaise de ta dépression, de ton anxiété. Ne peut pas, du tout. C'est Jésus qui doit être le quatrième homme dans la fournaise de ta dépression pour te sortir de là. It has to be Jesus who becomes the fourth man in the furnace of your depression so that he can take you out of that. Let's continue. And then I was like, clothes and trends. There are people, for them, they really rely on the trends and the ways things are done to feel good. Like, they follow the trends as they move. And that's the fourth man in their boring lives, or quote-unquote boring lives. Les habits, la sapologie, toutes ces choses ne peuvent pas être le quatrième homme dans la fournaise de ton mécontentement. Ça ne peut pas devenir le quatrième homme dans la fournaise du fait que tu ne t'acceptes pas toi-même. Tu n'acceptes pas qui Dieu t'a créé, la façon dont Dieu t'a créé. It just, you cannot. Like, your clothes cannot be the fourth man in the furnace of your inability to love yourself. In your inability to accept how God created you. You just can't be the fourth man. At some point, the clothes won't fit well the clothes won't look good. You won't be able to afford all the clothes you want that make you feel good. And then I went on and I wrote titles, awards, name, to make a name for yourself, accomplishment, power. Cannot be the fourth man in the furnace of living on earth. J'ai écrit des titres. Te faire un nom, des accomplissements, des grandeurs. Même le pouvoir ne peut pas devenir le quatrième homme dans la fournaise de vivre sur cette terre. It just can't. And of course, I am currently living in the US. So right now we're in the middle of an election season. It's just a lot going on. And I was like, I wrote down, I was like, leaders, governments, they cannot be the fourth man in the furnace of unemployment, of fear, of pain, of even people who are not getting along with each other. These people cannot be the fourth men that help us to actually deal with these things. Jesus must be the fourth man. Et j'ai écrit, moi je vis aux États-Unis et en ce moment nous sommes au milieu des élections. C'est la saison des élections. Et pour moi, je pensais à ça, je me suis dit, j'ai même écrit, les leaders de nos gouvernements ne peuvent pas devenir le quatrième homme dans la fournaise de nos vies, de problèmes, de guerres, de situations de famine, tout en ce qui concerne tous nos pays, toutes les choses dans nos pays. On ne peut pas se penser que le quatrième homme qui doit être avec nous dans le feu, dans la fournaise des situations mondiales, sont les leaders. Parce qu'à un certain moment, ils ne font pas ce qu'ils sont supposés faire. Et aussi, ils n'ont pas toute la force, toute la puissance de tout faire. Jésus doit être la quatrième personne dans la fournaise. You know, and then there are some people, for them, it's a house, having a house. For them, they're like, oh my goodness, I have a house. You know? The fact that I have a house, it's, you know, I have a land. It keeps me steady in the furnaces of my health and the furnaces of my loneliness, the furnaces of this and that. At least I have a house. Jesus must be the fourth man in the furnace of whatever it is you're going through. Il y a certaines personnes, pour eux, c'est « Oh, j'ai une maison, j'ai un état de terre, j'ai une terre qui m'appartient. Pour moi, vraiment, ça, c'est mon quatrième homme dans la fournaise de toutes les situations qui se passent dans le pays, dans ceci. » Non. And this one, this last one, I had to put it down because I think that it's also one of the things that we used often, especially Christians do use this as a fourth man in the fires of their lives. And I think that it's time for us to also address it. Your church and pastor, as much as they are used of God to speak into your life and be able to help you grow in your faith, they cannot be the fourth man in the fires of your spiritual walk. And that's coming from someone who has learned. I have both of my parents who are ministers. And one thing I've learned is that as much as, yes, they can be helpful to us to lead us towards God, but it cannot be the fourth man in the fires of our spiritual walk, in the furnaces that we find ourselves in our spiritual walk. Because when we look at the story of these boys, they chose to stand against bowing to an idol, and they were thrown in a furnace because of it. In your spiritual walk, there will be time where you'll have to stand up for what you believe, and it will end you into a furnace. But who is the fourth person you are going to have in that furnace? Is it your pastor? Because I'm pretty sure your pastor is busy in his own furnace. And your pastor is probably making the right decision to make Jesus his fourth man in the fire. So make Jesus the fourth man in your furnace. Pour moi, j'ai écrit ici, le dernier que j'ai écrit sur la liste, c'est l'Église et les pasteurs. Combien de gens utilisent l'Église et les pasteurs comme leur quatrième homme dans la fournaise ardente? Le pasteur et l'Église ne peuvent pas être le quatrième homme pour toi dans ta vie, dans la fournaise de ta marche spirituelle. Parce que quand on voit l'histoire de ces jeunes gens qui ont décidé de ne pas s'agenouiller, c'était une décision dans leur vie, dans leur marche spirituelle avec le Seigneur, de dire que non, je préfère être jeté dans la fournaise. À ce moment-là, il n'allait pas dire, oh Daniel, viens et sois avec nous dans la fournaise. Because, on peut dire que Daniel était leur dirigeant. Non. Pas du tout. Ils devaient avoir Jésus comme le quatrième homme dans leur fournaise. And I just said it in French, so I'll say it in English. A lot of people, when looking at the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, these boys, just going on with the whole church or pastors as your fourth men in the fire. You cannot have the church or pastors as your fourth men in the fire. Because even these boys, their leader in a way was Daniel. They couldn't be like, Daniel, you are our fourth man in the fire. Come and get us out of this mess we're in. Because we're about to be thrown into the furnace. For them, the fourth man in the fire had to be Jesus. How much more for us? And of course, when I'm thinking of this, for me, I can tell, even in my own life, moments when I made some of these things on this list, the fourth man in some of the fires of my life, and I ended up getting burned. Pour moi, en regardant cette liste, je me rends compte qu'il y a certains moments dans ma vie où j'ai utilisé certaines de ces choses comme le quatrième homme dans la fournaise de ma vie et j'étais brûlée. Il est temps de comprendre que la quatrième personne dans la fournaise ardente doit être Jésus. Pas ton argent, pas tes talents, pas tes connexions. It's time for us to understand that the fourth man that's supposed to be with us in the furnace is supposed to be Jesus, not our money, not our connections, not our family, not our church, not anyone else but Jesus. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. He's been my fourth man in the fire, time after time. Born of his spirit, washed in his blood. And what he did for me on Calvary is more than enough. I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. And it's so interesting when I was thinking about this particular story and who is your fourth man? Who is my fourth man? You want the type of fourth man that when he comes, even if you were not to survive the fire, you get eternity. I kept thinking about that all day today. Je viens de dire que la raison pour laquelle nous devons avoir la quatrième personne dans la fournaise, c'est parce que nous devons avoir le genre de personne, la quatrième personne dans la fournaise doit être le genre de personne que si tu n'es pas capable de sortir de la fournaise, tu as toujours accès à l'éternité. When I think about these boys, when they said, even for them, they were like, our God will deliver us. We know that. He will. But even if he didn't, we would still not bow to your foolishness. That's because for them, even if the furnace was their end to this side, this part of eternity, of life, they could look forward to eternity with God. Ces jeunes gens, malgré qu'ils savaient que oui, avec tout ce qui se passe, ils ont dit au roi, non, nous, on ne va pas s'agenouiller, ça ne se fera pas. Parce que Dieu, notre Dieu, va nous délivrer d'abord. Premièrement, il va nous délivrer. Deuxièmement, même s'il ne le fait pas, nous n'allons pas nous agenouiller. Ça ne va pas se faire. Parce que pour nous, même si on quitte ce monde, nous avons l'éternité avec le Seigneur. Who is your fourth man in the furnaces and the fires of your life? Someone who shows up and shows out. Qui est le quatrième homme dans la fournaise de ta vie? Quelqu'un qui est présent et en même temps fait des miracles. Aïe. For me, I'm reminded today that in the furnaces of my life, I am so grateful that the fourth man in the furnaces of my life is Jesus. Because, first of all, I know he can deliver me from the furnaces of my life. But also, even if he doesn't, I have eternity with him. Pour moi, je suis extrêmement contente de savoir que j'ai Jésus comme le 4e homme dans la fournaise de ma vie, dans les fournaises de ma vie. Parce que même si je sais qu'il peut me sauver de ces fournaises, mais même s'il ne le fait pas, j'ai un garantie de l'éternité avec lui. And, you know, you might be listening to this video and be like, I don't know what this girl's talking about. Furnaces and troubles and problems. If you ain't got no problems in your life, I got news for you. They're coming. Sorry. Sorry to be a bearer of bad news, but they're coming. Because really, troubles don't care who you are. They come. Et tu peux être là, tu regardes, tu te dis, mais c'est qui cette fille qui parle de la fournaise, des problèmes, des situations et tout? Moi, j'ai pas de situation, j'ai pas de problème dans ma vie du tout. Désolé de t'amener de mauvaises nouvelles, mais tes problèmes, tes situations sont en route. Parce que les problèmes et les fournaises de la vie ne discriminent pas du tout. Ils sont ouverts à tout le monde. And the thing is, when those troubles and those situations and those furnaces in your life start happening, what is your relationship with your fourth man? First of all, who is your fourth man? Because if money is your fourth man, it burns. If fame is your fourth man, we live in a culture of canceling. Cancel culture is a real thing. You do one bad thing and you canceled. Where did your fame go? Nowhere. Still in the furnace burning. If your fourth man in the furnaces of life is let me choose one of the ones here. Your career. There's someone going to college right now to try to get your job. I'm sorry, but like, it's crazy to me. I don't want to be negative, but I'm being honest. In the furnaces of life, your fourth man in that fire and in those situations and all that needs to be Jesus. Et tu peux être là, tu te dis, mais moi, je sais pas qui est mon quatrième homme dans la fournaise, les fournaises de ma vie. Il est temps de savoir, de se rendre compte qui est le quatrième homme dans les fournaises de ta vie. Parce que si, pour toi, le quatrième homme est l'argent, l'argent brûle. Si le quatrième homme pour toi est les médicaments, dans la fournaise de ta santé, à un certain moment, les médicaments ne fonctionnent pas, ne marchent pas. Tu fais quoi alors? Tu as rendu le médicament, le quatrième homme dans la fournaise des situations de ta vie. Si le quatrième homme pour toi est être populaire et connu de tout le monde, ben je viens te dire que aussi la popularité peut être complètement détruite par une action. Une circonstance, une situation peut détruire totalement le fait que tu es populaire. Alors là, maintenant quoi? Qui est la quatrième personne dans la fournaise de cette situation de perdre la popularité? C'est pour ça, moi, je fais confiance en Dieu. Comme le chant que je chantais dit, je fais confiance en Dieu. Mon sauveur, le seul qui ne va jamais échouer. C'est ça les mots de ces chants. That's why for me, I love this song because it's saying, I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. So I'm glad to have him as my fourth man in the fires of life. And of course, when I say fourth man, it's a saying because we're taking it into the context of this particular story. But really, he would be my second man. Or, yeah, this is my second man in the fires of life. Et bien sûr, en utilisant le contexte de cette histoire, nous allons dire qu'il est le quatrième homme, que Jésus doit être le quatrième homme dans les fournaises de nos vies. Mais en réalité, c'est vraiment le deuxième homme. Le deuxième homme dans les fournaises de nos vies. I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. He's been my fourth man in the fire, time after time. Born of his Spirit, washed in his blood. And what he did for me on Calvary is more than enough. So I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. Perfect submission, all is at rest. I know the author of tomorrow has ordered my steps. So this is my story, and this is my song, praising my risen King and Savior all the day long. I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. I trust in God, my Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. I I sought the Lord, and he heard, and he answered. I sought the Lord, and he heard, and he answered. I sought the Lord, and he heard, and he answered. That's why I trust him. That's why I trust him. I sought the Lord, and then he heard, then he answered. I sought the Lord, then he heard, then he answered. I sought the Lord, then he heard, then he answered. That's why I trust him. That's why I trust in God. My Savior, the one who will never fail. No, he won't fail. He will never fail. I trust in God. My Savior, the one who will never fail. He will never fail. I hope you were encouraged today. Figure out who the fourth man in the furnaces and the fires and the situations and the problems of your life is. Who is that fourth man? J'espère que tu es encouragé aujourd'hui de prendre le temps de penser qui est le quatrième homme dans la fournaise, les situations, les problèmes de ta vie. C'est important que cet homme soit Jésus. Parce que il est capable de te faire sortir de cette fournaise, de ces situations. Mais même s'il ne le fait pas, tu as l'éternité avec lui. It's important for you to really think about it because Jesus should be the fourth man in the furnaces and situations and problems of your life. Because he is capable of getting you out of those situations and problems and furnaces. But even if he doesn't, you get to have eternity with him. Be blessed. Soyez bénis.